following is a recent CNN news commentary. It involves the recent American elections and the allegations of voter fraud by Donald Trump and some members of the Republican Party. I'm not presenting this to express any political opinions of my own. It's simply meant as an English lesson. Watching and understanding the news is quite difficult for students of English. In fact, this is probably the highest level of English that there is to try to understand. I've known many college professors who are not native speakers of English, who actually teach English, who say that they cannot even understand American news, especially CNN. So I am presenting this as a way of trying to teach you higher level English. I break the video into many parts where I post some comments trying to explain what the commentator is saying and referring to. She uses many expressions that only native speakers of English would normally understand. She uses many metaphors, which is a type of symbolic language referring to something as being something else. I hope you can learn something from this video. I put a lot of work into it. It took me a long time to write all these comments. But anyway, listen to this and see if you can learn something. Again, this is very high-level English.
The former ambassador to the UN in the Trump administration and former governor of South Carolina wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. And she claims that it's really the media that is responsible for the Grand Canyon-sized divide bisecting the GOP. She writes this: the liberal media wants to stoke a nonstop Republican civil war. The media playbook starts with the demand that everyone pick sides about Donald Trump, either love or hate everything about him. That moment anyone on the right offers the slightest criticism of the 45th president, the media goes berserk. Republicans are trying to have it both ways. It's a calculated strategy to pit conservatives against one another. So that is her claim, as if Republicans require assistance in picking sides when it comes to Trump.
There's no question that the president formed the mob, the president incited the mob, the president addressed the mob, he lit the flame.
That is Looney Tunes, and you know why they're saying that? Because if the president didn't know and it was actually pre-planned, he's not guilty.
The mob was fed lies. They were provoked by the president.
How do you incite a riot that was already planned? How do you incite a breach of the Capitol that happened before the president even completed his speech? And how can you charge the president with inciting violence at the Capitol when he told the people at the rally to peacefully and patriotically make their voices heard?
The president has disregarded his oath of office. He swore an oath to the American people to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. He acted against that. What he did was wicked.
I don't believe he provoked if you listen to what he said at the rally.
The president bears responsibility for Wednesday's attack on Congress by mob rioters.
Haley says the media wants to stoke a Republican civil war. Stoke it how? By telling Americans that it's happening? what Republicans on either side of this divide are saying? Perhaps there would be no civil war if the media would just stop documenting it? The 10 House Republicans who voted to impeach Trump. How conservative House members tried to oust one of them, Liz Cheney, from the House GOP leadership. How 7 Republicans voted to convict Donald Trump in his impeachment in the Senate. How state parties censured many of these lawmakers despite the fact that Trump left the White House in disgrace and was the first president in almost 3 decades not to win a second term. There is a civil war. The GOP is eating its own. Casting out good people as it kowtows to conspiracy theorists. And the media ignoring that it's happening won't make Mitt Romney and Josh Hawley somehow agree on the existential questions facing their party. Nikki Haley is trying to have it both ways. She says that the pre-Trump Republican Party is over. Quote, most of Mr. Trump's major policies were outstanding and made America stronger, safer, and more prosperous. Many of his actions since the election were wrong and will be judged harshly by history. That's not a contradiction. It's common sense. And she says having it both ways is the only way forward for the party, when in fact she's been having it all the ways since January 6th. The day after the attack, she said this at a meeting of the RNC, quote, President Trump has not always chosen the right words. He was wrong with his words in Charlottesville, and I told him so at the time. He was badly wrong with his words yesterday. And it wasn't just his words. His actions since Election Day will be judged harshly by history. Well, in this latest op-ed, Haley writes that she will, quote, gladly defend the bulk of the Trump record and his determination to shake up the corrupt status quo in Washington. I will never defend the indefensible. I didn't do that when I served alongside President Trump, and I'm not going to start now, she says. Well, she actually can't start now because she already started weeks ago.
They beat him up before he got into office. They're beating him up after he leaves office. I mean, at some point, I mean, give the man a break. I mean, move on.
So she changed her tune, acting like Trump was the victim, which is one of his very favorite yarns to spin. She goes on in an interview with Politico, quote, I understand the president. I understand that genuinely to his core, he believes he was wronged. This is not him making it up. And the reporter asks her, you have the president of the United States telling everyone that he was cheated, that the voting systems are corrupt, that we're living in a banana republic where the deep state has rigged this election against him. Isn't that dangerous? And Haley replies, quote, he believes it. Well, that's ridiculous. He was and is making it up. It's all a lie. He knows it because the courts told him, voters told him, reality told him over and over and over again. His team and his allies lost nearly 60 cases having to do with the election. So yeah, he knows it. He just doesn't care. Haley zigzags through this op-ed. She says, quote, if the media gets its way, the GOP will dissolve into endless warfare, ensuring extreme liberal government for years to come. And also this, what's good for the media is bad for America. Some never Trump and always Trump Republicans also attack anyone who doesn't join the all or nothing chorus. Well, if there is one thing in 2021 that is all or nothing, It was the deadly attack against democracy on January 6th. If you're a lawmaker who was in that building that day, you should know better. That there aren't two ways to honestly look at an armed surrection that required you to hide in fear of your life. Hiding from people who literally stalked the hallways looking for the Republican vice president. The president and his allies lied to millions of Americans for 2 months, falsely saying the election was stolen and that he won. A lie he's still pushing. Those lies sent people to Washington, riled up, ready to literally and figuratively act on the myth that the election could be overturned by Mike Pence. When they got to D.C., Donald Trump egged them on, giving them a pregame pep talk.
And we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down anyone you want, but I think right here, we're going to walk down to the Capitol.
Nikki Haley also says this in this op-ed. Mr. Trump brought millions of new voters into the Republican Party, for which he deserves great credit. But the party also lost millions of voters. Well, that's like saying you lost 10 pounds, but you also gained 15, which is something that a few of us are familiar with stuck in the house during COVID. Am I right? You don't get credit for it. Wouldn't that be nice if you did? Nikki Haley may be constructing her own basic laws of math because of that. She goes on in this op-ed, quote, Mr. Trump's legal team failed to prove mass election fraud in court, but election security is still urgently needed. If you have to show photo ID to buy Sudafed or get on a plane, you should have to show photo ID when voting in person or by mail. Voting is a constitutionally protected right. Buying Sudafed isn't. Getting on a plane isn't. These are very different things. And there is no widespread voter fraud in this country, period. Not in the states where voter ID laws are championed by Republicans. But you know what there is in those states? Black people, brown people, people that trend toward the Democratic Party. Nikki Haley knows many people feel voter ID laws are racially motivated and have the effect of suppressing their votes, even if these requirements sound perfectly harmless the way that she describes them. Which brings us to another Republican politician whose sensitivity on race issues stands in contrast to Nikki Haley's. Nikki Haley.
It's time to move the flag from the Capitol grounds. This is a moment in which we can say that that flag, while an integral part of our past, does not represent the future of our great state.
That appears to be the same version of Nikki Haley who said this about Donald Trump in the Politico interview, quote, I don't think he's going to be in the picture. I don't think he can. He's fallen so far. We need to acknowledge he let us down. He went down a path he shouldn't have, and we shouldn't have followed him, and we shouldn't have listened to him, and we can't let that ever happen again. Well, behold it happening again. Steve Scalise, the latest House Republican leader, going to kiss the ring at Mar-a-Lago. Fox allowing Trump on its air to keep lying about what caused the insurrection in the first place, and all but 7 senators giving Trump a pass for his role in the insurrection. Your party is at a crisis point, Ambassador. You want to keep kicking the can down both sides of the road, ignoring reality, until what? You look up and see the crowd of people walking with you is dense with white supremacists, dense with cravenly ambitious politicians. Who jettisoned their morals miles back. Several clicks after they left fiscal conservative town and family valuesville without so much as a look back. It is a long road through the wilderness. Especially with your eyes closed.
Well, there it is. I know this was very involved and difficult to understand. Hopefully, after reading my comments, you could develop a better understanding of all of her terms and technology and metaphors. It's very difficult. If you learned anything, please make some comments down below. I'd really like to hear back from you.